All week here on the Washington Journal, we have been focusing on the battleground states that will decide this year's presidential election. We're examining what's changed since 2020, along with the issues and political trends that will motivate voters on Election Day. This morning, we're looking at the state of Pennsylvania. Steve Ulrich is the managing editor of the PoliticsPA website and joins us now from Lancaster to dig in to the state of Pennsylvania. So why is the Keystone State a battleground state?
Greta, good morning, and good morning to all your viewers. It's all about the electoral votes in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania's electoral votes will be able to tip the scale one way or the other for Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. So that is why the Commonwealth and its residents are being inundated by political ads. We're being inundated by political visits from presidents, from vice presidents, from surrogates. Philadelphia's ABC station has already sold out of all its ad inventory with 12 days remaining before the election. So all eyes are on Pennsylvania, as we like to refer to as the swingiest of all swing states.
The swingiest of all swing states. Explain that.
Pennsylvania has gone back and forth. In 2016, Pennsylvania, after voting twice in 08 and 12 for Barack Obama, tipped the scale and voted for Donald Trump. In 2020, the Commonwealth went and voted for Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. So all eyes are on the Commonwealth right now as to which way Pennsylvania is going to lean, and there are a few bellwether counties that we're really keeping an eye on at either end of the state.
We're showing our viewers right now the 2020 presidential results in the state of Pennsylvania. As you said, the current president, Joe Biden, won that state 50% over the former president, 48.84% for the former president. How many votes did this come down to?
In all, it was about 88,000 votes. And in 2016, it was 40,000 votes. So we don't know which way Pennsylvania is going to go. When you look at Pennsylvania's 67 counties, 55 of them trend Republican. But it's the largest population centers, whether it's in the west in Allegheny County, where Pittsburgh is located, in the city of Philadelphia and its surrounding suburbs, or where Democrats dominate. So the eyes of the country right now are really focused on a couple of counties in Pennsylvania. When you look at our northwest corner, Erie County, and along the Pennsylvania-New Jersey border, Northampton County. Those two counties both went for Trump in 2016, both went for Biden in 2020. Will they tell the story in 2024? We're certainly focused on that.
Let's look at the Pennsylvania's voter party registration numbers. So over 9 million registered voters. Democrats make up 44% of that. Republicans, 40% of that. No affiliation is 12%. Talk about these numbers. How have they changed since 2020? And what do they mean when we are 11, 12 days out?
We've really seen a growth in the Commonwealth for Republicans. Democrats, even as early as the 4th of July, had a 600,000 margin when it came to voter registration. Since on Monday, when the last numbers came out, that number has shrunk to 300,000. So we're seeing more people leave the Democratic Party and go Republican, but we're also seeing a large growth among those who are non-affiliated, the independents. Yes, there are some that are affiliating with third parties, but independents right now make up over 1.1 million voters in the state. And that's who Kamala Harris and Donald Trump and their campaigns are really targeting, trying to figure out which way they're going to lean on November 5th.
Is it too late to register to vote in Pennsylvania?
It is too late to register to vote in Pennsylvania. Our registration deadline was Monday, but voters who are registered have until next Tuesday to be able to request a mail-in ballot, a no-excuse absentee mail-in ballot. The challenge, if you wait that long, and the deadline is 5 o'clock next Tuesday, the deadline is the pressure becomes filling out your ballot and then dropping it in the mail. There's no guarantee it would arrive to your election office by 8 p.m. on election night, and that is a requirement. It has to be in the hands of the election office by the closing of polls on election night. Postmarks for the U.S. mail do not count in that situation. So you can still be involved. You can still ask for a no excuse mail-in ballot, but registration is closed.
Here's a headline from phillyburbs.com, and it's on the banner page of Drudge Report. Over 1 million voters have already cast a ballot. Are they mostly blue or red? That is the question they asked. Steve Ulrich, can we answer that?
We cannot answer that, Greta. 1.9 million people have requested mail-in ballot. 1.2 million have returned. We know they've returned. We know campaigns know if you requested a ballot, if you've completed it. No way of knowing whether you voted Democrat or Republican. In the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, counties are not allowed to post any results until after polls close on election night. So we're just left to assume that if there's a percentage of Democrats, do they vote party line? If there's a party line vote for Republicans. So looking at my numbers, if I saw that correctly, it was just over 60% of those returned are Democrats at this point.
What do you think that means, and does it mean nothing right now? How will votes be counted on election night? And is that when we will learn how people have voted and the method that they've voted?
The way it works in Pennsylvania is due to the state legislature, county election offices are not even allowed to open the mail ballots until 7 o'clock in the morning on election day when polls open in Pennsylvania. At that time, you have a staff of workers who will take out the ballot out of the envelope, make sure that the envelope was signed properly. Take the ballot out of the secrecy envelope, make sure that was taken care of properly. Unfold the ballot, smooth it out. Only then do you begin to run it through the optical scanner. So, as we said, you're not allowed to announce votes until 8 o'clock. The first votes that will come from Pennsylvania will be those mail ballots that were turned in prior to Election Day. So similar to what you may have seen in 2020, you'll see a sudden surge showing Kamala Harris in the lead because more Democrats utilize mail ballots than Republicans. At that point, election offices will turn to the in-person polling place vote and tabulate those next and report those. So a lead for Democrats in that situation will suddenly begin to diminish and decrease just because more Republicans turn out to the polling place than Democrats who use mail ballots. At that point, you're going to see it be very, very, very close. We all know it's going to be tight in Pennsylvania, and it will not be decided on election night. In my experience as a former county election director, one of the 67 counties in 2020, we had over 8,000 provisional ballots. These are ballots where if you walk into your polling place and you're not in the polling book, but you say, yes, I am registered, you'll be given a provisional ballot. Same as a regular ballot, but it does not go through the optical scanner. What happens in these situations is they go back to the election office. The election office will double check to make sure, number one, you haven't already voted. Number two, you are a registered voter, and a number of other criteria. Only at that point will the provisional ballot be allowed to be counted. In my county, we had a 4-person staff, including myself, counting over 8,000 provisional ballots on election night. If the 4 of us did nothing for the entire 8-hour day but count provisional ballots, which take about 60 seconds to review and approve and enter into the state system, we could only do about 1,900 a day. So it would take us 4 additional days to do the provisional ballots. And provisionals could end up being the tipping point to the entire presidential election in Pennsylvania.
When do you think we will know who won the state of Pennsylvania?
Right now, I agree with the gentleman who runs the decision desk for Fox. He says the over-under on Pennsylvania being decided is Saturday. So it's going to require voters to have a great deal of patience. Everyone wants to know when they go to sleep who won the election. In 2016, we didn't hear until 3 o'clock in the morning. In 2020, it wasn't until Saturday. If this is close as pundits anticipate, I would expect the same thing. And it will be important for citizens to remember there's going to be a lot of misinformation that is given out during that time. that just be patient. Election directors want to make sure they get their count accurate first, then as quickly as possible, not the other way around.
All right, we're taking your questions and your comments about the battleground state of Pennsylvania. This map, this is PA voter registration by county, and these, by the red and blue, mark where the party has an advantage in each of these counties. Let's get to calls. John in Easton, Pennsylvania, voting for the vice president. John, good morning.
Hi, Greta. Hi, Steve. Yeah, I'll be voting for Ms. Harris, and the electoral college vote is important up here where I live, because I live in Northampton County. You live in, Steve, you're in Lancaster. I used to work down there. Okay, now up here we have two little townships, Upper Mount Bethel and Lower Mount Bethel. And the last time the Trump ran, he carried those two little townships. It's like 225 votes. He literally wiped out the whole Philadelphia million some votes. It was like totally absurd.
Let's talk about
and
that.
The other thing.
Wait, hold on, John. Let's talk about that. Steve Ulrich.
Absolutely. Northampton County is a bellwether in all of this. Allegheny and Philadelphia counties are matched by the red of the other 55 counties. A lot of people have described Pennsylvania as having a T, red across the top, red down the middle, Pittsburgh and Philadelphia in blue on either end. And Northampton County now is one of those counties that Democrats are making a concerted effort in to try to have Northampton be one of the Philadelphia collar counties, which includes things like Bucks County, Chester County, Delaware, and Montgomery County, hoping to bring Northampton into the blue category. But there's a lot of working class residents in Northampton County, Lehigh County, Luzerne County, who are pushing back against some of the ideals of the Democratic Party and Kamala Harris in particular.
All right, let's go to Michael in New Kensington, Pennsylvania, supporting the former president. Hi, Michael.
Yes. Good morning, Greta, and thank you for hello to all the viewers on C-SPAN. I am in Westmoreland County, which is very close to Allegheny County. I happen to be a strong supporter of Trump, and I have been going around door knocking in my neighborhood, which is a mixed racially, and it also happens to be a very blue-collar area. And I have found some interesting – I was very nervous about doing that at the beginning, knowing how much antipathy there is towards President Trump, generated by the media, I believe. But in any case, I found that people were very open and very welcome to coming to listen to what I had to say and to talk to me. And the Republicans, there was complete unity amidst the Republicans on voting for Trump. And the other thing that I found was that nobody trusts this mail-in. Everybody said they were going to go to the polls, in spite of what the Republican leadership, Lara Trump, and everybody were saying, go vote early, mail in, and everything like that. And that is the problem, because we have this system of voting here in Pennsylvania, which many of us do not agree with, which was allowed by the Democrats. The Democratic Supreme Court said that all these changes to the voting were okay, and that's why we are in such a mixed bag here.
Okay, Michael, let's listen to Steve Ulrich.
Michael, thank you for your question. I have to push back a little bit as a former election director. In 2019, the Pennsylvania State Legislature, in a bipartisan move, enacted Act 77. Pennsylvania has always had absentee mail balloting, particularly for those folks who were military overseas or those people who were not going to be in their voting district on election day. The Act 77 allowed it to become a no excuse policy. So Republicans and Democrats were both on board with the policy, which was first put into play in 2020. It was not until the conclusion of the 2020 election, and there were questions regarding the validity of mail-in balloting by one of the two candidates, that has really drawn it into question. I think people find that in Pennsylvania in particular, mail-in voting is very, very popular. Now, there is push among Republicans in Harrisburg to try to change Act 77, but overall, I would have to say it's very, very popular, and it's hard for me to believe that will be taken away anytime soon.
Steve Ulrich, we were talking earlier on the Washington Journal about whether or not gender is a factor in how people will vote in November. What are the demographics of the state of Pennsylvania, starting with gender, and will that make a difference?
It will make a difference, absolutely. Right now, one of the things we do with PoliticsPA is we do our own poll tracker only of statewide polling. We don't pay much attention to the national polls. We focus on the Commonwealth in particular. And women, right now, when you look at the average of the last 5 statewide polls, women have a plus 16 advantage voting for Harris over Trump. You do hear a lot of conversations among young men in particular who feel that the Republican candidate, Donald Trump, brings more strength. They look back to a time pre-COVID when they say things were better, which I also think brings into question a county like Center County, where Penn State University is located. It's also gone blue in 2016 and 2020, but President Trump is planning to hold a rally at Penn State on Saturday to try to really drive up the college vote and see if there are more college men who are willing to vote for the GOP candidate and negate some of the advantages that women have gotten in the Commonwealth. That said, yesterday I was at a rally with Josh Shapiro, Raphael Warnock, Jeff Duncan from Georgia, and it was an opportunity where they were trying to rally Republicans to vote for Kamala Harris, to have women say, it's okay to go into the ballot box. No one is going, and you go into your ballot box, no one's going to know how you cast your vote. So if your husband is saying you should vote Republican, if your friends are saying you need to vote Republican, in your mind, in your conscience, if you think you need to vote Democrat, go ahead to do that. So you're going to be seeing a lot of discussion over the next 10 days, encouraging women to vote their conscience.
What about the Latino vote in the state of Pennsylvania?
Outstanding question, Greta. The Latino vote is in the south central part of the state. We have a Latino belt that runs right up Route 222, Reading, Allentown, into Bethlehem. We're seeing right now Latinos in particular feeling that they were being ignored by Democrats. Latino vote has always been solidly blue, but that feeling that Democrats have turned their back on them, that they've gone away from working class people and more toward, lack of a better phrase, elites, has turned a lot of Latinos toward listening to the Republican message. Democrats have made a concerted effort to go on radio in that Reading, Allentown, Bethlehem area and talk to Latino men in particular and try to negate the push of Republicans, but also explain that Latino men in particular have not been forgotten.
And what about the black vote in the state of Pennsylvania?
Right now, the black vote is overwhelmingly Democratic. We're looking at 80% in that respect. Certainly, when you look at the bluest of blue areas in the state, in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, overwhelmingly African-American support for Kamala Harris. It's really going to come down to, Greta, what happens in the smaller counties. One of the pages that's been ripped from the Josh Shapiro playbook is for Democrats to go out to the smaller counties that are ruby red and try to negate some of the advantages that Republicans have traditionally had.
Which counties? Which counties are those?
For example, Lancaster County. Lancaster County has been in the Trump category and account for last 2 cycles, 16, 20, 22%. favoring Republicans. Josh Shapiro, John Fetterman, when he won the Senate race, would go to a county like Lancaster and just try to reduce those numbers. It wasn't a case of Democrats just going to the big cities, the 12 counties we spoke of. They wanted to go out to the other 55 counties, hear what voters had to say, and basically say, we hear you, that's why we're on the ground, and if you would please consider voting Democrat, it would certainly cut into the margins that Republicans traditionally run up in the T.
All right. Finally, let's talk about age and the age of voters in Pennsylvania and why it matters.
One of the problems that the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has had in recent years is we've lost congressional representation because our census numbers have been going down. We have the four main state universities, Penn State, University of Pittsburgh, Temple, and Lincoln University. We have a series of 14 to 16 Pennsylvania state-related universities. Then we have over 60 to 70 colleges and private colleges and universities throughout the Commonwealth that are educating 18 to 22-year-olds, and unfortunately, the state has not been able to keep them in the Commonwealth. They've been going outside. So Pennsylvania's population trends older in that respect. So you're going to see more of a 55 and up vote coming from Pennsylvania. But when you look at the numbers, and I know you're going to be speaking with Burwood Yost from Franklin and Marshall, who will go deeper into the poll, when you take a look at our statewide average over the last 5 polls, 18 to 29-year-olds favor Harris about 10%. But a number of polls have surveyed 18 to 34-year-olds, that number jumps for Harris. So that's one of the reasons, Greta, why we refer this as the swingiest state. There are so many factors when you look at the makeup of Pennsylvania. This side's for Democrats, this side's for Republicans, and it's all going to come to a head on November 5th.
All right. Dan in Glenside, Pennsylvania. You were undecided, Dan. Why is that?
All the junk mail I used to get, and lately I've been getting a lot of text messages from Nebraska, Nevada, South Carolina, Georgia, telling me that I'm not a registered voter. And I went over to my state representative, and I checked to make sure that someone didn't screw around with my voter, and there was no problem with it. But I keep getting these text messages from these Republican areas that saying I'm unregistered, let me help you register, would you like to, and we'll set you up for mailing. I always go in person. And the last time I went to vote in the 2020 election, there were some people there, and you could tell they were Trump because they had really no authority other than, I guess they self-appointed themselves to monitor the election. And I almost got in a fight with one of them. And the reason that happened was I was in the Marine Corps. I joined the 3rd Marine Division when it was pulling out of Vietnam. And I spent my share of time in Central America. But when these guys come up and they saw me with my Marine Corps jacket on, started making remarks like, yeah, you're a Republican. I said, no, I'm not. And so he almost got in a fight.
That's all right. Dan there in Glenside, Pennsylvania, thank you for your service. Dan, in Glenside, Steve Ulrich, is that why he's getting those text messages? He's undecided. What's going on?
That is exactly why, Dan. One of the things we do know, being in the election business, is that mail-in ballots, once they are accepted by the election office, once they are scanned in, campaigns know that, and they stop reaching out to you because they know you've already voted. That's not a reason, certainly, to cast a mail-in versus voting in person. But it's important to know you will run into a lot of people at your polling place on election day from both camps. They are not allowed within 10 feet of the front door of your polling place. So when they lobby you, when they hand you different mailers to try to encourage your vote, just understand that they're not allowed to physically intimidate voters. That is not allowed. That is why Pennsylvania has constables. One of their sole responsibilities is to keep the peace at the polling place on Election Day.
Steve Ulrich, how much money has been spent in the state of Pennsylvania on this presidential race?
Oh my goodness, Greta, I wish I could zero in on that number. I can say, for example, when you look at the U.S. Senate race between incumbent Bob Casey and Republican challenger Dave McCormick, McCormick's Political Action Committee has put in $30 million on its own just for Dave McCormick. So you can only imagine the money that's being put into the Commonwealth. As we said, TV stations throughout the Commonwealth are flooded. Their ad inventory is sold out. You cannot turn on your TV. You cannot log into your computer. You cannot do any social media today in the state without being targeted by a campaign message. I think I speak for all residents of the state is we're looking forward to having it stop on Election Day.
What impact will the presidential race have on that Senate race?
I think it will have a great impact. One of the things that Act 77 we talked about with no excuse mail-in balloting did was it eliminated the box on a ballot for straight line voting. So you just couldn't go in and say, okay, I'm voting for Trump and McCormick. I'm just going to check this box and it's Republicans down the line. Now you have to vote for each race. And given that situation, yes, we do know there are a number of voters who unfortunately believe that we only hold elections once every 4 years for president and will only cast one vote. But a majority of voters will go down the line. And we're going to see that if Kamala Harris is able to win Pennsylvania, I believe Bob Casey will carry Pennsylvania. I think if Donald Trump wins the state, I think there's an opportunity for Dave McCormick to sweep in and flip the U.S. Senate seat in Pennsylvania to red.
Steve Ulrich, managing editor of PoliticsPA. You can learn more if you go to PoliticsPA.com. Follow them on X at PoliticsPA. Thank you for the conversation.
Greta, thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity.